If you forgot that the Chevy Traverse still existed, I forgive you. It's definitely fallen behind in terms of buyers' perception or awareness due to newer entries like the Kia Telluride and Hyundai Palisade. But for 2022, it's received a refresh that we covered earlier this year at the Chicago Auto Show, and now I have it here at home with me in Atlanta. And I have to say, even in 2022, I think it is an excellent offering in this segment that buyers that are looking for three-row crossovers should definitely still consider. The model I've got here today is the top of the line High Country trim. This one is in the black cherry color. It's like a dark maroon red and it looks really nice in the sunlight. Of course, it's kind of dirty right now if you can't tell. But for 2022, the updates include some massaging of the front design here. We've got some more chrome elements, full LED headlights, DRLs, turn signals, everything you want LED, it's up here. At 205.9 inches long, the Traverse here is pretty much the largest SUV in the three-row family crossover category. It has the same wheelbase as the larger Tahoe, which is a full-size SUV. That one just has more length to it, and it's definitely a wider, taller vehicle. But once upon a time, before the Tahoe and the Suburban and the other GM large SUVs got their independent rear suspension, the Traverse here actually bested them in some interior dimensions. Now that those models have caught up, it definitely is not as big on the inside, but it's still very, very close. This is still bigger than a Volkswagen Atlas or a Mazda CX-9. It's going to be the one you want if you really, really need all of that cargo space and you do haul passengers in the second and third row often, because some cars in this category, you can do that in a pinch. This is the one where you're actually going to be able to use it all pretty often. The High Country trim here rides on these 20-inch 6-spoke wheel designs, or I guess you could call those 12 spokes if you wanted to. These are 255/55 Continental Cross Contact LX20 tires, and even with the Eco Plus technology they have, they're actually quite grippy. This High Country trim has full LED taillights, LED turn signals, and a lovely looking dual exhaust setup down here. All of that is real. Of course, if you get the towing package, you'll get a tow hitch right here. This one doesn't have it. Standard driver assistance and safety features for the Traverse include automatic emergency braking, front pedestrian detection, lane keep assist with lane departure warning, follow distance indicator, which are those lights in the dashboard that flash at you when you're about to hit something or leave your lane, forward collision alert, and automatic high beams. Optional equipment includes rear pedestrian alert, the safety alert seat that vibrates your butt when you're about to hit something or leave your lane, adaptive cruise control, enhanced automatic emergency braking, and the HD surround view camera, which this High Country trim has. Another feature that I really appreciate is buckle to drive. So if you get into the car and you haven't buckled up, the car will not actually allow you to physically shift into drive or reverse. You can't shift out of park unless you are buckled up, which I think is really smart. The only problem is that feature can be turned off in the settings. So if you're somebody who wants to be a little bit responsible, the Traverse will still allow you to do that. From 2018 to 2019, the Traverse was offered with two engine choices, a base 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder or this 3.6-liter V6. That 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder is no longer available. It was only available on select trims, and I think it was actually just one trim level, and nobody really bought it. It was torquier than this, but it had less horsepower. This V6 makes 310 horsepower, 266 pound-feet of torque. You can mate it to front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, and there's only one transmission, a 9-speed automatic. And as I'll get to later in the drive portion, this is one of, if not my favorite engine transmission combinations in this segment. Fuel economy is 17 in the city, 25 on the highway for the all-wheel drive model. Bump that up 1 or 2 miles per gallon for the front-wheel drive model. At 5'9", I find the front seats of the Traverse to be quite comfortable. The seats are not too heavily bolstered. There are no pressure points. There's nothing that's causing me any discomfort. I've got plenty of headroom, plenty of space to move around up here. Nothing that I'm banging my knees up against. It's all very nicely laid out. These are not too heavily bolstered, so if you're broader or wider than me, you should be pretty comfortable. And they're heated and ventilated here on the High Country trim. They're also 10-way power adjustable over here, only 8-way on that side because it loses one angle of adjustment to the seat bottom, and the lumbar support adjustment is only in and out. So if you're looking for up and down, you'll want to look elsewhere. And lastly, the steering wheel has an electric power steering column, so if you want to adjust the tilt and the telescoping angles, you actually have a D-pad right here that you can use to adjust those accordingly. The second row is also very accommodating. Of course, we have this dual pane moonroof, which really opens and lightens things up back here. On this High Country trim, you only get a black interior, so it's nice that you do get that option to see the sky above and brighten things up. Otherwise, you only get captain's chairs here on the High Country as well. And we've got these adjustable armrests right here, and actually, they only come down to right here, so there's no way to like click them into other positions like the new Hyundai Palisade. So that is one thing to note, but otherwise, the space back here is plentiful. There's really no area where I find anything to be tight or uncomfortable. I've got plenty of headroom, plenty of footroom, that's another thing. A lot of space down here under that front seat to stretch out. There's a completely flat floor. It's almost like an EV. There's no hump, nothing at all. So if you did have a center seat here, that would be really good because there would be no problems down there. There's a nice cubby for storage right here under the center console. You have controls for your HVAC and your heated seats, but there are no ventilated seats back here, unfortunately. You've got a power outlet and 2 USB-A ports, and then air vents up here in the ceiling, or the headliner, if you will. Lights all around, and yeah, it's a pretty comfortable place to be. These seats are pretty flat too, but they slide forward and backwards, and they recline quite a bit. Actually, they recline a bit, not the most I've seen a recline do, but it's nice to have that. Now, obviously, you could just crawl through the opening between the captain's chairs to get to the third row, but Chevy gives you the ability to move this seat forward as a sort of tilt and slide function to get you that access in between the seat and the seat pillar here. It doesn't have it on this side, it's only on the right side, so I guess for curbside pickup duties, but other cars offer it on both sides, so I wish Chevy would do that here. But let me show you what that looks like. So over here on this side, there is a lever right here that you pull, and this is what the seat does. And then once you're back here, obviously, as you can tell, my knees are up against the seat back. That's because this is all the way back in its tracks. But then again, you can slide the seat forward and apportion out the space evenly if you want. You will have to ask them to do it for you because the only way to slide it is from that little lever in the front of the seat. So be polite and ask them if you can move forward. But once you're back here, in terms of actual space, I've got 4 inches of headroom, which is great. This is a 3-person bench, so you can fit technically a third person right here. The seatbelt for that position comes from the ceiling, so if you want to fold the third row down, you will have to detach it from this first. And then we've got a USB-A port on this side, a USB-A port on that side, cup holders on either side, and air vents up in the ceiling right there. Other than that, it's pretty basic. You can't recline these seats, even though you definitely could, considering how much space in terms of space between the back of the seat to the actual glass. There's so much. There's about a foot of space. So these seats definitely could recline, but Chevy decided not to give you the ability to, even on the high country trim. Once you do get that silent tailgate open, we've got 23 cubic feet of space behind the third row. The entire cargo area with all the seats folded down is 98.2 cubic feet, which is very, very large for the segment. Pretty much the largest you're gonna find. The only problem is, while we do have power buttons to fold down the third row seat here in the high country trim, there are no levers or buttons to fold down the second row from back here, so you will have to go around to the side to do that. Since this is a high country trim, that means we are in the most expensive Traverse you can get. This one stickers for just below $55,000. While I'm showing you this interior, do keep in mind that refreshed 2023 Hyundai Palisades interior that I tested out a few weeks ago. Just remember what that interior was like as I go through this one. So over here we of course have these leather seats that are heated and ventilated, and height adjustable seat belts there, height adjustable headrests, all standard fare. We've got the High Country logo stitched or embossed or whatever you want to call it right there in the headrest itself. And then up above that, we actually have a dual pane moonroof. So we've got that back portion open right here. That one is controlled by a button up here on the control center. That's going to open it right there. But if you want to open the shade here in the middle, it just requires a push of this tab right here, and then it slides back. So it's a manual shade here and a power shade in the back. Moving over to the door panel, we have a mix of what is mostly harder plastic. Down here at the bottom, this is all hard. This section right here is also pretty hard. This section is padded, but it's not the thickest padding ever. We've got sort of a softer material here in the middle. This is more injection molded plastic, I would say, but it's on the harder side. And then up top there, completely hard plastic. The door handle itself may look like it's metal, but it's actually a shiny plastic, unfortunately. And then this section around there is a faux metal look that has a glossy finish to it. It doesn't look super premium in this interior, but I would have preferred to have seen something metal, something more of a lighter contrast, because this whole door panel is really just all black. I would have liked to see a mix of colors here. But moving on to the dashboard, this section up here is all soft leather padding. It's not real leather, of course, but it's got that leather-like feel. This stitching looks pretty good, but then we've also got this middle section that's sort of fake Alcantara. Down below that, we have a pretty large glove box. If you open this up, it's super wide. It's not super deep, but it's wide enough that you could fit multiple, books, or maybe one tablet and a Nook type thing in there, or a laptop and a Nook, or a laptop and a tablet. It's wide enough, it just doesn't go very far deep. Now over to the center here, we have pretty much the same design as before the refresh. This refresh didn't do much with the interior. We've got the same infotainment system as before. It's the same infotainment in the Trailblazer I just tested. And it's also got the same cool pop-up function where you push that button right there, it reveals a storage cubby behind there so you can stash keys or whatnot in this secret compartment, which I think is very cool. The nice thing is we have a lot of physical buttons down below. We've got your audio controls, that button again to raise and lower the screen, your home button, which takes you to this screen, and then down below all your audio controls. We have heated and ventilated seats, like I said, so you've got the ventilated seats there, the heated seats there, automatic climate control, and all your various functions there. And then the Chevy Infotainment 3 Plus is going to be very standard stuff for Chevy. It's very clean, very sharp graphics, everything is snappy, it works like it's supposed to work. The navigation is right here, and you can control your seat functions and your AC right there. And yeah, it works really easily. The voice commands, I haven't really tested them too much because they're not really worth using, but you can access those on the steering wheel. Of course, I usually have it in Android Auto, which is wireless. You've got wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And down below here, HE wireless charge pad, which has a nice ridge on each side to keep your phone in place. And my giant Google Pixel 6 Pro fits in there perfectly fine. Unlike the Trailblazer I just had, this car only has USB-A ports, which is, the old-fashioned kind. No USB-C ports. You do also have an SD card slot, I don't know if you can see that, and an auxiliary port. The shifter is nice, it has a good feel, and it does a very simple action of forward and backward, that's about it. And then an improvement over the pre-refresh model is this dial switch for your all-wheel drive system. Before, you couldn't really tell which mode you were in. Now it actually has lights that flash and light up to show you which one you're in. So we've got two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, and then an off-road mode, I guess you could call that, and then a trailer or tow mode. So what you'll do is you just turn the dial towards the right, and it doesn't spin all the way. It's just one of those, like, you crank it one way and hold it, and you let go, all-wheel drive will flash, and then that tells you that the four-wheel drive is on. So basically, the all-wheel drive system is now activated. Then you do it again, and now you're in the off-road mode, and one more time for the trailering mode. Then right here we have the button to activate your lane keeping as well as turning on or off your automatic start-stop. Then under the armrest we have a storage bin that has two levels. This sort of tray right here can hold a couple of items, but it pops out like so to reveal a pretty deep storage area that you could probably fit quite a few things in, and it's nice that it has a big bright light right here to light everything up at night. This also comes with a digital rear view mirror, which is activated by flipping the switch right here, just like pretty much every other car that has this feature. The steering wheel here is the same as the pre-refresh model, so it has this four-spoke design that I think feels very comfortable in the hand. All the buttons have this soft touch feel to them, a kind of a rubbery feel to them, and you can tell where your fingers are laying because they have this raised portion over each function. So over on the left here, we have your cruise control settings, so turning it on and off, canceling, restarting or setting the speed, setting the gap between you and the car in front of you, and then the heated steering wheel button is right here, and it's nice because it has a light right there that illuminates to tell you that it's turned on, so you don't have to look up into the infotainment system to find out. You'll always have this indication right here. The Traverse has automatic headlights, which can be activated by pushing that button there. And then up here in the center, we have an LCD instrument cluster, but it's not a full LCD instrument cluster like you'll find in most of the competition now. You've got analog dials on the left and the right. You can change the theme of the screen, but there's only two themes. There's Touring, which we have here, which gives you the actual digital speedometer up there at the top, or you can do the Sport theme, which I can activate by going left, down, options, and then down a couple more to the right, and then go back up to Sport. So that's going to bring up this actual digital yet analog looking speedometer, and all those same functions you saw in the center will now be in the middle of that ring. So I can go back to the left here and go up to phone, navigation, audio, and then your general trip information and things like that. So not the least customizable screen, but not the most either. I would like to see Chevy for the next generation bring in a full instrument cluster that is all screen, because this is starting to fall behind in terms of the competition. As I said earlier, the driver's seat is the only seat to get two-person memory settings, so we've got 1, 2 right there. And then this button, if you hold it, it actually moves the seat and the steering wheel out of the way to help you get in and out of the car. So if you hold that down, everything is kind of adjusting on me. The steering wheel just moved out of the way, and the seat moved back a little bit, so that's pretty cool. And then down here, we have an interesting switch. This is actually to control the height of the rear tailgate. You can switch it between max height, 3/4 height, or off altogether. And then we've also got the Bose premium audio system. This is a 10-speaker unit. It's got the branding right there. And we can also find the branding over on this side as well. So right away when you get behind the wheel of the Traverse, you'll definitely notice the weight. This isn't the lightest thing out there, and it's definitely one of the larger, if not the largest vehicles in the segment, so that makes sense. But the base curb weight is around 4,400 pounds. I'd estimate this one's closer to 45 or 46 with all-wheel drive and all the features it has. Making up for that weight is the fact that we have one of the most responsive and, in my opinion, best combinations of engine and transmission in this segment. The 3.6 V6 and the 9-speed automatic work seamlessly together. This thing has a lot of power right when you need it. The transmission downshifts immediately when you need it to, and then once it's up to speed, it's always in the background as if it was never there in the first place. Acceleration from 0 to 60 miles per hour took me 7 seconds flat, which is really good in this segment. There are some that might do it a hair faster, but those are going to be higher performing or higher output engines. This, of course, is the only engine option available, and I got that time in the front wheel drive mode. Of course, we've got that all-wheel drive dial right here where you can switch it into all-wheel drive mode if you need it. I imagine there's a chance that that might be a little bit faster if you put it in all-wheel drive mode. I wasn't able to test that out, but that's quick enough. And also, the only time you really hear the engine, it's a very refined and quiet engine unless you're below 20 miles an hour. For some reason, down at those lower speeds, the engine becomes more noticeable, and you can definitely hear it. It's not the quietest thing out there, but that's not really a deal breaker because you're not going to be spending as much time at below 20 miles per hour as you are at 35, 40, 45 miles per hour. But really where this car shines is out on the highway. Before you get on the highway, of course, you're going to need to do some braking, and braking from 60 miles per hour to 0 took about 126 feet to do, and that is also pretty competitive for this class and the size of the vehicle. So this is a very confident car in terms of acceleration and deceleration. In terms of handling, it's par for the course. You know, this is a big vehicle. You're definitely going to feel the weight as you turn around here and there, but the tires are grippy enough that you never feel like you're losing any traction. And of course, you have the confidence of all-wheel drive at your fingertips right here on the dial if you need it. And I just think this is a very easy car to drive. The ride itself is so smooth. It's almost like a megabus. It actually reminds me of the Grand Wagoneer I had earlier this year, in the fact that when you're going down the highway, it floats over all the bumps. It soaks everything up so nicely. And even with these larger optional wheels on the high country trim we have, they don't affect the ride quality at all. I really, really find the highway to be the best place to drive the Traverse. And if you're gonna be doing a lot of road trips, I really recommend getting this car, or at least testing it out, of course. At lower speeds, you can hear the engine, but at 50 miles per hour, I measured about 73, 74 decibels. It's very quiet in terms of the powertrain at those speeds, but you will hear wind noise up here in the A-pillar area. There's some wind buffeting going on, and you know, that's par for the course. But also, if you have music turned on, you're probably not even gonna notice it. So this is, again, a really, really great road tripping vehicle. Fuel economy is definitely where things take a hit, but really most of the options in this segment aren't going to really be that exemplary in fuel economy unless you're looking at hybrid options, to which there really aren't that many. You've got the Highlander hybrid, and that's about it. There is no Telluride hybrid, there is no Palisade hybrid, there is no Honda Pilot hybrid, there's no Atlas hybrid. So most, if not all, of the competition except that Toyota Highlander are going to give you options that really can't do much better than this in terms of fuel economy. On my 40-mile test loop, that is a good mix of city and highway driving, I only managed 18 miles per gallon, and that was with all-wheel drive turned off. If fuel economy is a concern, I guess the one thing that is a saving grace is that we do have standard automatic stop-start for the engine. It can be turned off via the button right down here in the console, and that does save you a little bit of gas when you're at stop signs and stoplights and things like that, but it's not going to save you from having the kind of fuel economy you'll get out of this thing. But again, most of the competition is not going to do much better. The only thing I wish it had, and this is more for highway driving, but was a more serious lane tracing assist. It's more of a ping-pongy type system that bops you back in your lane whenever you veer out of it. Because of how well this thing works on the highway, I would love to have a system that helps you out going on the straight, long paths you'll be going on the highway. That would make this the pinnacle of highway driving. And again, another reason why I would wait for the next generation, because it will very likely have Super Cruise. So yeah, the Traverse is starting to show its age a little bit, but this 2022 refresh has reminded me one important thing, and that's that you could do a lot worse. It has tons of space on the inside, a very competent, responsive, and peppy powertrain that I really enjoyed driving, all-wheel drive capability, and most, if not all, of the safety and tech features buyers in this category are looking for. But if that is something that you really take seriously, I would hold off and wait for the next generation, because a lot of the newer competition are offering more cutting-edge designs and interiors and features and things that the Traverse here just doesn't have even with this refresh. So if those are the things you're looking for, I'd say hold off about a year, because the next generation is on its way very soon. But this is a really good holdover refresh, and I think you should definitely consider it if you are a large family or somebody who's going to be hauling cargo a lot and you don't want to go all the way into the full-size category, this will still serve most, if not all, of your needs perfectly fine. As always, thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate your view. If you liked this video and you're a fan of three-row crossovers, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more in-depth car reviews. If you want EV-specific car content, of course, head over to our EV Buyer's Guide channel. If you like to read your reviews, alexonautos.com will have all of that right there on the internet for you. And lastly, please make sure to follow us on all the social media channels we have, including TikTok. We put a lot of work into that content, and we'd love to see what you think of it. Thanks again so much, and we'll see you on the next one.